Joining us this morning. Let me introduce Lauren Epstein. She is advertising and sales executive for Google in their multi-screen performance marketing organization, leading that organization, representing a little bit over $1 billion in advertising revenue, right? So when we think about where Stephanie led off and where Marcel took us,
Yep.
I can't think of a better person to kind of ask some questions to. And so as we go through this, I've got some questions. If there are questions from the audience or over the hashtag, just let us know and we'll go from there.
Sounds good.
So, taking off on what Stephanie said and giving the 15-second soundbite for the outlook as it relates to mobile advertising, it is about data, right? So it's about the abundance of and the collection of data. It's around the emerging insights as it relates to mobile. It's around the shift from traditional media to online media.
Yep.
So if we think about that soundbite and we translate that to where you're at with Google, one of the things we see in the outlook and that people will see for this year's outlook is that there should be a step change, right? If you follow the money, you want to have a return on investment on that money. So how does Google see the step change as it relates to measuring effectiveness now that mobile is taking off?
Yep, great question. So you just said mobile advertising, it's about data. I would add to that, it's about consumer behavior. Does anyone in this room not have a mobile phone on them? No one. That's what this is about. When people say, well, I know that mobile is supposedly taking off, but I don't believe it or I'm not seeing it. The proof is in the pudding that we are carrying this device that connects us to the world, every single one of us in this room and in this city and really in this hemisphere at least, if not the entire world. We're carrying around this device, and it's about how can advertisers make meaningful connections as we ask questions of this device. You think of Siri or you think of Google Now, you think of just Google in general. You're asking it questions, and the whole point of Google is to give you the most relevant answers, things that will make your life easier. So back to your question about how does an advertiser quantify this? Yesterday I was actually speaking at an Internet Marketing Week conference, and the topic was mobile advertising, and I heard a CEO of a pure play business say, the question was, what's your mobile strategy? And his answer at first worried me and then really pleased me. The first part of his answer was, well, we have a mobile site. That was it. That was the strategy. We have a mobile site. And he said, and unfortunately, no one is making a purchase on it. And I was like hitting my head against the wall like, this guy doesn't get it. That's okay. People aren't necessarily going to make conversions on your mobile site because your mobile site and the mobile experience that you give any given consumer is just one tiny part of the process. The important thing is to look at any given conversion these days as part of this big ecosystem of conversions. How do you influence someone during one part of their day when they may be using their mobile device and then get them to come back later? And that was the part of his answer that really made me think the CEO does get it. He said, they're not making conversions on our mobile devices, so our goal is just to push them back to our full website on their laptop later. That's it. That's the point. Understanding the connections, that's the same consumer. And if they're more likely to make a conversion on laptops, fine. Don't try and change them. Just understand their behavior already has changed in how they're moving down that funnel slowly, starting at the top on their mobile device and perhaps converting later. So one more part of the answer here. What Google is doing in response to that to actually help advertisers quantify and measure and track the connections between that user who found the ad on their mobile device and went back to the office later and made the conversion on their laptop, is we've introduced into AdWords accounts, that's your Google advertising account, what we call cross-device conversions. What's a cross-device conversion? Simple. When an ad is clicked on one device, a Google.com ad, let's say I type in, because yesterday the pure play advertiser was in the pet medicine business, I type in dog food. And I click on that ad on my mobile device, but I don't make the conversion right then and there. If I'm logged into my Google account and later log in again on my Google account, which just means I have Gmail open or I'm using an Android phone, on my laptop and make the conversion, Google will know that it was you, not specifically who you are, just that it was the same person who clicked the ad, and show that to the advertiser, that this is a cross-device conversion that occurred. So what does that mean? That means that now there's a new metric in your AdWords account, not just the total number of people who clicked on an ad, went directly to the site and purchased something, but also the estimated number of people who clicked on your ad on one device and then later made an e-commerce purchase on a different device. really drawing the connection there for the advertiser. Maybe not the raw number that's so important, but using that as a sample and saying, wow, 10% additional conversions came through on a totally different device than I paid for that click on.
Great. I mean, we'll get back to some leading company questions a little bit later, but using your CEO as an example and then comparing the CEO to, when you're normally going out and working with the agencies and working with your clients, like how far advanced have they become with respect to the multi-screen measurement? I mean, is it still a upward trajectory, or is it something that's an easy conversation?
Okay, so I have a great story about this. So some of you may have heard the name Vint Cerf. He's sort of like the father of the internet. Recently, he's been a researcher at Google. And it's not very common that advertisers can get him on the phone, but for one particular very large finance advertiser several years ago, like 5 years ago. By the way, stop and think, what cell phone did you have 5 years ago, right? Like, it wasn't a smartphone, most likely. Only the very early adopters were making real internet transactions on their phone 5-7 years ago. But Vint Cerf, this very forward-looking scientific guy, got on the phone with the sales team and the advertiser as part of an annual business review. And they said, Vint, what should we focus on moving forward? And he said, mobile. Focus on mobile. That's where this is going. Get it together. Like, that's where all your strategy, all your dollars should go. And the conversation went on for a while. And then after about 20 minutes, the advertiser said, okay, cool. So we got that mobile. What else should we focus on? And Vint was like, are you serious? You're not listening. I don't think you're understanding. Just mobile. Just go there. Get that right. And they did. So if the question is, are advertisers getting it? How evolved are advertisers when it comes to multi-screen? Very few advertisers that I talk to, and I talk to some of the world's very best marketers, don't know that mobile is important.
Right. They'll nod their heads, yes. Yep.
Exactly. They'll say, yep, I get it. I need to go there. However, here's where they get stuck. Tying mobile campaigns back to ROI, number one. And two, getting stuck in what was sort of a trendy term, again, 5-7 years ago, last click attribution. Used to be cutting edge, today, not at all. So we're talking about attribution, we talked about cross-device conversions. Google is also working very hard on developing models of measuring for the advertiser. Let's say you put an ad out there on a mobile phone. It may not turn into a mobile e-commerce conversion, but it may turn into a conversion online on your website later on. It also may turn into an in-store purchase. And Google is working very hard to be able to quantify and show advertisers that link so they can really understand the full value of showing their ad on a mobile device.
Sure. I mean, it makes sense, right? If you think back to the follow the money, I think, Stephanie, you had over 20% growth rates as it relates to mobile advertising worldwide, and that is a worldwide number. So
yes.
you look at it and you say globally, right? If we expand our horizon even a little bit further and you say that it's not just a phenomenon, it's everywhere in the world.
Yeah.
Where do you see differences globally with respect to the trends you just talked about?
Sure. So I have to say, I think it's relatively common knowledge that the U.S. isn't necessarily the #1 adopter when it comes to, first of all, chronologically, like how soon we adopt. There are several countries that were deep in smartphones 5 years ago when you were probably on your flip phone. However, from my perspective as an advertiser, my company's perspective, certainly just an advertising perspective, the U.S. really is, though, still our testing ground because of the nature of our role in this country and our relationships with advertisers here. So when Google does roll out an advertising beta, it tends to be in the U.S., and we test and we iterate here, and then we roll it out to other countries.
Sure.
That said, I think there are certainly different cultural nuances. Other countries, say, let's say Asia, how they're just much more used to using their phone in a different way. They were the first to take pictures of an ad in a subway and then go directly to the website from there. So there's certainly nuances, but from a Google perspective, we're using the US as our testing ground.
Okay. So, I mean, you talked about the connection that the consumer has with the mobile device. It doesn't matter if you're in the US or China. It is a device that you hold very near and dear to your heart. One of the aspects, as using Marcel's language, the elephant in the room, I figured I'd want to get your opinion on is, so because that device is so connected to me, there may be privacy concerns with respect to the use of that data and then how you then use that across your multi-screen attribution.
Yep.
what's your perspective on privacy?
Sure.
It would be remiss of me not to ask
Yes.
as someone at the center of the debate on privacy.
Yes, no, thank you for the opportunity. So from a Google perspective, privacy is first and foremost for us. We back that up by letting the user be the one to decide how much information about them is provided. You can go into your Google account settings, you can opt out of just about anything. Here's the flip side of that coin. The more information that you give the system, the more relevant the results will be to you and what you're looking for, right? If you just Google pizza, the system knows that you probably want a pizza. Anyone in the world could figure that out. But if you allow the system to know where you are, what time of day it is, and how close you are, if you're like in your home versus if you're out on a street corner somewhere, you'll be able to get more relevant results. Say you're at home and the system knows that, then they'll probably serve you pizza recipes or your best frozen pizza brands, even ads for that, as well as organic search results listings. Whereas if the system knows that it's midnight and you're in Atlantic City out on a street corner, it may say, hey, here are the pizza joints closest to you. That makes it a more relevant experience for you, makes it a more useful experience for you. And at the end of the day, if you're not concerned about the system knowing, where in the world you are, you'll just get better results. And we talked about magazines, so I do want to just add this point about magazines. For many magazines, ads are so relevant to what the users are interested in that it becomes the content. Think of like a big, gorgeous issue of Vogue. There may be 25, 30 pages in a row just of ads, and they're glossy and they're gorgeous, but they're so relevant to what that user is interested in that they become the content. And I think you can really draw the parallel there to what Google is doing. We want the ads to be so relevant to you and what you're looking for that they become what is interesting to you. They become the content.
So when Phil wants that pizza, and we address him with Phil.
Right.
Hopefully it works for him. As it goes back to question one, when you think about that the privacy and the personalization and the attribution across multi-screen, how predicated is that measurement on the personalization? I mean, how far into personalization do you have to get to?
Yeah. Look, personalization is important. You don't want to, if the comment about Phil was to say, and Phil was a little freaked out and put off by that and no longer wanted to continue his relationship with that advertiser, that's where you want to be careful. And my response to that is simply think of advertising as like that networking that you do at the end of a conference. If you walk right up to someone and you know everything about them and you just start bombarding them with what you can do for them and how great you are, it's going to be an uncomfortable conversation. On the other hand, if you listen to them and you find out what they're looking for and you give thoughtful responses to what they are putting out into the world and telling you about themselves, that's when it becomes a mutually beneficial relationship, right? So to draw the connection to digital advertising, if you know, using demographic research and just frankly Google cookie information that you're talking to someone who is most likely inferred to be a mother of young children who has a history of browsing for, through fashion content and articles, if you then place the right ad in front of her using the information that you have about her subtly and offer her something that she wants, then your advertising really becomes useful to her. That's when it becomes relevant and becomes the content.
Sure. So I mean, that's a great example from a specific perspective. Generically, if you said, it's about relevancy, it's about, the fact that I've got this with me all the time, so I'm connected with it, it's a connected experience, it's always on. What are the leading companies doing to take advantage of that connected experience as it relates to mobile advertising, mobile experiences?
Yep. So there's a few things that you can do. My favorite examples have to do with what are called extensions to that typical text ad that you're used to seeing on the google.com search results page, that text ad that's on the top or the side of the search results. On a mobile phone, it may be very likely that someone is actually looking to find your physical location. So we provide what's called a location extension, where the user, instead of clicking that text ad and going to your website, can actually click the location extension to be brought to a maps result to see where the closest store to them is. Another extension is called a call extension. For many users, they don't want to go to the website, they just want to call you, call the car dealership, call the call center, get some answers right now. We offer a call extension for mobile devices only, where you can, instead of clicking the ad, going to the website, you click on the call extension, your phone immediately dials that number, and you're on the phone with the store or the call center. So that's for instead of text ads. Also apps. Apps are so important to so many businesses, especially for connecting with loyal users. We talked about super fans briefly. It's those loyal super fans who are most likely using your app. It's not a new customer acquisition tool. But for those users who may have downloaded the app and have not used it in a while, we offer the opportunity to show a special ad just reaching certain audiences who have not opened the app in the last 30 days, let's say.
Right.
App remarketing.
That's powerful. It's very powerful. I mean, if you think of whether on the forward edge of innovation, right, you have the things that you just kind of talked about, but there's even more stuff coming down the road, obviously, as part of Google and being front and foremost with respect to innovation. Like, can you give us an insider's view, whether it's wearables,
Sure.
whether it's Google now, as it relates to mobile advertising?
Yes. All right. So my 3 favorite innovations coming down the pipe from Google, and by the way, they all have one thing in common, and that is the reduction of friction. Okay. So our CEO, Larry Page, is on the record as saying technology should make lives easier. Technology should just get out of the way and let humans do what we do best, the work that is rewarding, the work that really takes the human mind. Let technology take care of the banal stuff. And part of that is the reduction of friction. What do I mean by friction? Well, when I have to take my phone, or you have to take your phone and unlock it, that's friction. That's reducing the ease with which you get to the answer. When you have to pick up your phone or take it out of your pocket, that's friction. So with regards to wearables, of course, everyone knows about Google Glass. That's one innovation. Is that the be-all, end-all? I don't know. Probably not. But the idea is, let's reduce the friction of having to actually use one of your hands to hold that device. Of course, that's pretty common across the industry. So Google has gone one step further and said, what is friction when you want an answer? Friction is saying to Google, whether that's through your hands or through your voice to Siri or something, give me the answer, where is the nearest Starbucks? That's friction. So that's where Google Now comes in. Google Now is a set of cards that will populate on your smartphone to show you the answers to questions that you haven't asked yet, but which Google thinks you will want to know the answer to. So on my phone this morning, it popped up, it said, at a certain time to leave now to go to the PwC event. By the way, here's the weather, and the Rangers are playing tonight. Don't forget about that. So that's
As a
2.
Blackhawks fan, I can't.
Sorry. Number 3, by the way, what is friction? Friction is having to think about driving a car while driving it when you could be doing other things with that brain power of yours. So you may have heard Google is working on a self-driving car through the Google X organization, and it has not been released out into the public yet, but that is certainly something that you could see coming down the pipe in the next couple of years.
Good. I mean, I will ask for questions here in a second. I've asked you a lot of questions. As it relates to you going out and when you're selling, you're working with your agencies, what are the questions that you ask of them to kind of push the bounds with respect to where they're at and where they could be?
Yep.
Then we'll turn it open to questions from the audience or over the hashtag.
Sure. So the question that I'm asking advertisers all the time is, tell me, are you really allowing the pursuit of profit to drive your marketing decisions? Why do I ask that question? Well, of course, we all as marketers think about, okay, how do I make my business more profitable? As business people, we're asking ourselves that question. But what I see marketers doing, and this ties back to I don't want to invest in mobile ads because they're not driving my arbitrary, insert number here, 5-to-1 ROI that I'm used to seeing on desktop. Ask, okay, but are you using those connections that we're able to show you about how that mobile ad actually did turn into a profitable conversion when that user later came in store? And are you using that knowledge to inform the bids and the budgets that you use to reach the user across all platforms?
It's very good. Questions from the audience. We have a couple minutes left. Any questions that folks would like to ask of Lauren?
When are we going to see that inflection point between where people are comfortable sharing data and getting the relevance back, offset by completely different form of data, but the hacking that happens at Target, and the average mobile user kind of puts those two together.
Yeah.
And so I should ask for privacy on everything because you're going to steal my credit card.
You should, but you probably aren't. I think we all are aware of these horrible hacking incidents that happened at a Target or a Neiman Marcus, and we're scared of it. But at the end of the day, we still shop online. We still put our credit card number into sites. We still allow sites to remember our password. We still allow, while you are absolutely welcome to opt out of sharing any data with Google, change your settings so that we don't know if you're a man or a woman, we don't infer your age, fine. But we're finding that more often than not, people are willing to share that information because of the relevance and because, frankly, of the convenience and the ease that it lends. If I personally, and I don't speak on behalf of Google, but if I had to guess, I'd say, especially with regards to mobile sites, we're going to move in that direction so that, because the only way you're going to see conversion rates even come close to what they are on a desktop or laptops on mobile devices, if we make that such a seamless conversion experience. Oh, my credit card's in there, found the product I want, just press the button and go. People are, if that's convenient for them, they're going to go that way and just risk these, horrible losses of privacy that can occur.